So yeah, we are talking about transformation of the company, and we want to focus on the technological disruption triggering the transformation. What I would like to talk in this episode about is on strategy. A strategy breaks first, not the technology. And how does it come? You know, we hear often that new technology kills companies. Well, I don't think the technology kills company. The technology reveals maybe weaknesses of the company, but it will never kill it. What kills the company is if you have a strategic inertia, or if you have a company which does not have the ability or the willingness to evolve the core business, meanwhile it is still profitable. Yes, it's true that board often, and also the management very often, talks about protecting the core. I don't think that is dangerous if the core business is constantly evolved. So the point here is, yes, you have to protect the core business because it's your most profitable business, because you have the most stable structure there, you have your leadership focus there. But if that core business is not evolved, it might be a slow decline of the company. Because, you know, profitability of today is not proof of relevance tomorrow. Yes, it's true that transforming the core business feels extremely risky, and there are legitimate concerns about that, like this is what made us successful, this is where our best people are, this is where margins are coming from, and we could destroy, you know, something which works. Again, these are very rational concerns and very valid concerns. The mistakes, in my opinion, is treating them as a reason not to act. On the contrary, this exactly should be the reason to act, and to act with clarity. The question is, what role plays technology of tomorrow in this decision? And the answer is obvious. It's a crucial role, but it's not at the technical level. The crucial role is, the boards do not need to discuss or to choose architecture, technological architectures, or, you know, platforms. So from the board point of view, the important thing is to define the direction of travel. And the direction of travel, it means where differentiation will sit in the future, how customer value will be defined in the next coming years, and of course which capabilities the company has in order to meet that transformation. So for me, consistency matters more than being absolutely precise from the beginning. And as we often see in transformations, inconsistency is more dangerous than, again, being partially wrong. Is transformation of the core business and of the core business model in a industrial technological company different from, let's say, software companies? I guess so. And maybe because the transformation is slower, the transformation is also very capital intensive, and the technology is very deep embedded in the product generations, and also in the installed base and in the operations. So transformation does not happen in this company over a quarter. It happens over several years. But this does not mean that it makes it optional. Customers move very often faster than the product cycles, and boards must govern that with this tension in mind. I have some examples. So something which came up on top of my mind is, let's imagine you have a flagship product which is also extremely profitable, and you don't see that the customer values, the customer habits, or the competitive landscape is changing, and you don't see that early enough. So you are not evolving this flagship product. What happened in this particular case I have in mind, this was a perfect engineered product. Competitors with a good enough solution came in the market. And in this case, it happened that it was a more simple product, but it can happen also on the other side, that competitors are coming in with more integrated solution. In any case, what happened is that the differentiation disappeared. The criteria of differentiations, we were driving the decisions at the customer for buying this flagship product. Those criteria changed. The decision drivers at the customer changes, and by that flagship product started to decline, and we saw a margin decline. So that's a typical example where either becoming more sophisticated or, on the contrary, becoming more simple, the board and the management did not see the signs early enough and did not evolve the core business. What about strategic assumptions under pressure? That's a very difficult question. And I think what needs to be constantly reviewed, and I talked about that earlier, are the assumptions. What assumptions do we have? What assumptions are at the base of the strategy? And again, what assumptions, if they turned out to be wrong, would break the strategy? And this is the discussion which is shifting from forecasting to really to fundamentals. What kind of assumptions should a board challenge? Well, typically for me, it's the assumption the customers will continue to buy our product or will continue to buy our solutions. Or we have such a big installed base that this is a huge advantage which will protect us for the next coming years. Or typically for Europe, regulation moves so slowly, so changes slowly. Or competitors will need the same margin as we have in order to survive. If those assumptions are not challenged, if those assumptions are not, as an example, it's not exhaustive, of course, are not reviewed periodically, it might really break your strategy. Once a board agrees on what core business needs to be transformed and how, what is the really turning point? And in my opinion, the real turning point is the capital allocation. Because at the moment of the capital allocation, the strategy becomes real. It becomes real when money starts to move. Because when you decide where to invest, you also decide what to stop. This is the moment where transformation shifts from a narrative to consequences. So capital reallocation has a lot of consequences, of course. Something which we might talk less about at board level is the consequences on the human capital. Because the legacy business might lose, let's say, influence. The decision power is shifting through different parts of the organization. Some skills become less relevant, and you have other skills which you might need to acquire from outside. And you have also a retention risk when you reallocate the capital. So this is an emotional part which is strong, and sometimes at board level these emotional parts are not covered. That might tempt to slow down or even to compromise the transformation. So it's extremely important that this is acknowledged. And you don't try as a management, that's more now the task of the management, to try to protect everybody, because usually it means that you are protecting the past. When it comes to capital allocation, I want to focus that a little bit more, because that's really where it's the turning point, and these are a lot of questions the board needs to address, especially when it comes to reallocation. So what do we stop to do, and how do we protect the core business, but also find a way of integrating the new technologies. So these CapEx priorities are important, and when you set that priorities as a board, you also give a very clear signal to the market and to the organization on what direction the company is choosing. It's also a very strong sign where the leadership attention is. And also it becomes very tangible for the people when you start to align the incentive schemes, the incentive structure to this new strategic orientation. I could give an example on that, how important is that you are consequent over, from the direction you are choosing, the strategic direction you are choosing, and how you bind that with the capital allocation and reallocation. An example I have in the top of my mind is that a company wanted to develop services. Services which are extremely important for the future, they are identified for the future, the customer needs, so all the strategic intent and the consequences were clearly established, but the funding was not there. So a consequent allocation of funding, of resources, was not happening. So the company went through a lot of learning, but it never became a real structural transformation. Closing reflection, well, what is the hardest decision a board has to take in this context? For me, it's approving a strategy which hurts short term, but it's securing that you are surviving long term. And also here I have a personal experience from a decision which we took as a board, which had short-term disadvantages and created a real discomfort both at board and as management level. But well, time will judge it, but I'm still convinced that it was the right call. So board leadership, it's not about avoiding pain, it's about choosing which pain the company can survive.